So when we talk about the major powers in the Middle East, Iran always comes up. But here's the thing that's so fascinating. For decades, Iran was on the receiving end. It was destabilized, its government was overthrown, it was attacked by foreign powers. So how on earth did it become the powerhouse it is today?
And that's the big question we're tackling today. It's a story that's all about a unique identity, one that was forged through betrayal and driven by this fierce, almost desperate will to survive, a will that has completely reshaped the entire region.
I mean, just look at this timeline. The journey from being a victim to becoming a major player is pretty stark, right? In 1953, you have a foreign-backed coup. In the 80s, a brutal war. And now, Iran is a dominant regional power. So how do we get from there to here? Well, to figure that out, we have to go way, way back.
Okay, so the first piece of this puzzle is Iran's identity. It's totally unique, and it was forged over centuries of, well, a lot of conflict. And it's this identity that really sets it apart from all of its neighbors.
So, long before we called it Iran, this land was home to the massive Persian Empire. And here's the key thing to remember. This place wasn't originally Islamic. It had its own ancient religion, Zoroastrianism. Its roots go back thousands of years. So, what changed?
Well, by the 7th century, the last Persian dynasty was, frankly, a mess. Super corrupt. The Sasanian kings were seen as cruel, they had crazy high taxes, and a really rigid class system. So you can imagine, when Arab armies showed up with a message of Islam, the local people were surprisingly open to it. Islam offered equality, lower taxes if you converted, and a simpler faith. The people chose a new path, and the old Persian Empire just faded away.
And that brings us to the next massive turning point in Iran's story. For a long time, the region was a mix of different kinds of Muslims. But in 1501, a new dynasty came in and made a huge decision. They declared Shia Islam the one and only state religion. And just like that, almost overnight, Iran becomes this Shia island in a huge Sunni sea. This created this deep, deep sense of we're on our own, a mentality that honestly, you can still see today.
All right, let's jump forward to the 20th century. Iran discovers something that should have made it incredibly wealthy. But instead of just bringing riches, it brought a whole new kind of trouble right to their doorstep. People call it the curse of oil, for a reason.
And when I say trouble, look at this deal. It was just unbelievable. When oil was first found, Iran didn't really get how valuable it was, but Western countries sure did. Britain and America swooped in with a deal where they did all the work and took almost all the profit. Iran got a tiny, tiny fraction from its own natural resource. I mean, come on. It was pure, simple exploitation.
So by 1951, you can bet the Iranian people were fed up. They elected this charismatic prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, and he did something that was at the time totally unthinkable. He nationalized the oil industry. He stood up and said Iran's oil belongs to Iranians, and he kicked the foreign companies out. The guy became a national hero overnight.
He was a hero, but it didn't last long. The US and Britain were furious about their lost profits, so they decided he had to go. The CIA and MI6 launched a secret operation, spreading lies, starting riots, and in the end, they staged a coup that overthrew Iran's democratically elected government. And that one event, man, it just burned this deep, lasting distrust of the West right into the Iranian soul. It's something they've never forgotten.
So all of this history, right, this feeling of being betrayed and messed with, it leads directly to the Islamic Revolution in 1979. And that event, plus the brutal war that came right after, forced Iran to get creative and invent entirely new ways to survive.
In this quote, it just says it all. That's exactly how Iran felt after the revolution. The world pretty much turned its back on them. And then, from 1980 to 1988, their neighbor, Iraq, backed by the United States, invaded. It was a horrible, devastating war, and Iran had to fight it almost completely by itself. The lesson they learned was brutal and crystal clear. You can't trust anyone. You are completely on your own.
So in response to that feeling, Iran basically built two new pillars to hold itself up. The first one was for internal security, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC. Now this is not just an army. Think of it more like a parallel state, designed to protect the revolution from every enemy, both foreign and domestic. It controls huge chunks of the economy and answers only to the supreme leader. It's all about ensuring the regime survives.
The second pillar was for the outside world. The thinking was, look, we can't win a head-to-head fight with a superpower like the US. So what do? Well, you get other people to fight for you. Iran developed this really ingenious strategy of proxy warfare.
Instead of fighting their enemies directly, they would find local groups across the Middle East who shared those same enemies. And they'd fund them, arm them, and train them.
And what you get is this, a huge network of influence that stretches all across the region. It's how Iran can throw its weight around and challenge its biggest adversaries, like the US and Israel, without ever having to risk a direct all-out war. It's a strategy that was born from a feeling of weakness, but it's made them incredibly powerful.
So everything we've talked about, the isolation, the betrayals, the clever strategies, it's all led to the three pillars that define Iran's power today.
You can think of these three things as the modern-day expression of Iran's long history of having to defend itself, all alone, against what it sees as a hostile world. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, geography is a huge deal for them. Iran sits right next to a tiny little waterway called the Strait of Hormuz. But get this, 20%, 1/5 of the entire world's oil supply has to pass through that strait every single day. The power to just threaten to close that gives Iran massive leverage over the whole global economy.
Okay, second pillar, missiles. During that war with Iraq, Iran was desperate for weapons. They managed to buy some missiles from places like China and North Korea, but then they did something pretty amazing. They took them apart, figured out how they worked, and started building their own, even better versions. Today, they have over 1,000 different kinds of missiles, the most powerful arsenal in the entire Middle East.
And that brings us to the final and probably most controversial pillar, the nuclear program. From Iran's point of view, a nuke is the ultimate insurance policy. They've seen how the US thinks twice about attacking countries with nuclear weapons, like North Korea. For them, a bomb would guarantee the regime's survival, make them the undisputed top dog in the region, and create a balance of power against Israel, the only other nuclear state around. So, this all brings us back to where we started. Iran's missiles, its network of proxies, its nuclear ambitions, they're all obviously a huge deal. But you have to wonder, is its real strength in the weapons themselves? Or is it in the long, painful history that taught it one single overriding lesson: how to survive no matter what?